Let's get on to topic 2, shall we? Let's talk about Mortal Kombat's beta. So this, as you're listening, wasn't this past week. It was the week before. The weekend, before that. If you pre-ordered Mortal Kombat 1, you got access to their beta. So what they're trying to do here, just like any beta, stress test, all that shit, and figure out what's working, what's not working, with a bigger Q&A panel than obviously NetherRealm has at their disposal. And I had the opportunity to play it. I only played maybe a day's worth, a few hours, but I had a good time with it. And I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts and experience with it, what was included, all that jazz. So for the Mortal Kombat beta, we had 2 modes available to us as players. We had a single-player Towers mode, and we had the online typical casual matchmaking fights. Characters available to us, we had Sub-Zero, Kenshi, Kitana, Liu Kang, Li Mei, and Johnny Cage. And we had 4 cameos available in Frost, Kano, Sonya, and Jax. I think we've talked about it in other podcasts with our Mortal Kombat updates, roster talks, whatever, but just once again, confirmed character spots playable, there are 24. Usually that roster sheet does not include like the DLC characters. Those usually get added post-launch, so 24 I'm believing at launch, along with 16 cameo characters. So 24 playable, 16 cameo once again. And we also got 2 stages that we were able to play with this beta. We had the Tea House and we had Johnny Cage's Mansion, both with 2 time settings, day, night, so you can see a little bit difference there. I had the opportunity, or rather took the opportunity to play as all the characters and use all of the cameos. One thing I noticed, this may just because the beta, fatalities, typical, performing of the fatalities, but they don't have their distance listed. Most of the ones that I did do seem to be mainly mid-distance to anywhere. There was one fatality that was a close range one, which was Johnny's. He just kind of essentially grabbed the person and smashed their face in the ground. So that one was close. And all of the cameos have fatalities tied with them. Personally, I haven't watched any of the combat casts, so if you're like, oh, what are you talking about? Of course they laid all this out. My bad. But all the cameo characters do have fatalities as well. And similar to what the cameo characters are doing in being homages to the old games and the old timelines. Someone's fire alarm is going off again. These are classic fatalities also from the old games. So they are more tame than your newer fatalities. They are quick, short, to the point, but similar to what MK1 did with the nostalgia factor, as we've talked about many times. The cameo character is doing the same thing here, which I do appreciate, that NetherRealm does really respect its past in storytelling and obviously the games that they put out there. So just rewarding those long-term fans of like, hey, this is still here, and getting obviously the up-res visuals of it, even if they don't logically make sense or are kind of silly, still fine. It's just a nice little thing to see and have added into the game. In terms of gameplay, most of my time was spent in towers. To be honest, I just wanted to have the opportunity to learn characters, not like a lot of people online doing their insane and crazy combos, just like the FGC, the fighting game community, does always. I am a very lower casual on that bar. Like, I would say I'm more interested and more engrossed in the community than your typical everyday person, but like, if I'm going online, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to get my ass whooped. So these longer combos, these are things like frame data, all that stuff that I don't pick up on. I learn things more by a feel, and I don't feel I can learn that in an online setting. The towers, the single player stuff, that's more my speed, that's more my pace. So I focus mainly on there to play everybody, and use all the cameos as well. In my opinion, Li Mei and Johnny Cage were the most fun to me to use. I think some of their maneuvers were it was easier to pick up on some combos with those guys, and that was a lot of fun. One that I kind of struggled with was Kenshi. I'm not sure why. There was just some disconnect with me. I just couldn't find anything to use or to go off of. Once again, only playing a couple hours. I know I could have probably been a little bit more due diligent of like looking at the combo list or looking at the move set and then being like, oh, it's 1 2 1 3 or whatever button presses. I didn't want to do that. That's something that kind of pulls away from me in fighting games of like, I respect people who do that or are really entrenched in it and look up this data and look up all this stuff and like go into the training modes for hours to try and nail their combos down. To me, not fun. It's not my cup of tea, so that's not something I'm going to do. And while looking at a combo list isn't even like that strenuous or whatever, I just wanted to play the game and kind of figure out stuff on my own. So doing that, Kenshi didn't click with me as well. I'm sure if I did take the time to look into it, it would be a little bit better, but just telling you honestly what my experience was. So yeah, occasionally May, those characters resonated with me a little bit more in terms of moveset and like what they could do. I briefly touched on the combat casts. If you've watched those from NetherRealm, the 3 developers there, was it Tyler, Derek, and oh man, what is her name? Wow, I had it and I blanked. I'm gonna feel awful because I follow her on Twitter. She's great. One moment, I'm so sorry. Stephanie, Jesus, my bad. Those 3 have been breaking down the characters since MK1 through Injustice 2, MK11. They do great breakdowns. They show you the movesets. They do matches and explain a lot of the lore. If you've been watching those, I'm sure they've touched upon some of the new origins for certain characters. I haven't watched them, but Johnny, with this new rewrite, we talked about it maybe in the last update, I don't recall, but he doesn't have what I think Dio called the glow. Doesn't have the glow in this one where he had like the energy from Shinnok or whatever awoken from him and eventually Cassie in the old timeline. He doesn't have that in this rewrite. Using him in this game, he had some kind of similar ability, but it was almost like the Flash is what I akined it to, where it was like this rapid movement where he had almost like a shadow or a follow him, like a mist kind of thing. I'm not sure what that is. I'm sure we'll figure out with the campaign mode, but just seeing that was like, oh, all right. Lee May, I don't know anything about her past. My experience with the Mortal Kombats, once again, is 10 was my first, went back to play 9, and then 11, and now we're at now. I played Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcades, did awful at it, but I have no experience with Mortal Kombat 1, 3 through 8, so I don't know a lot of these other characters, where I'm like, oh, this is a new character to me. No idea. So, like, I'm not going to know a lot about Lee May. I know they've announced since a lot of the roster as we're approaching the September release date. So hold on, I'm going to pick up or pull up the site real quick just so I can talk about who I know, who I don't know. So I don't know much about Rain. I know he appeared in 9, or he was playable in 9, and he appeared briefly, in 10. So Lee May is completely new to me. Havoc is completely new to me. Ashra is completely new. Okay, so only 3 of them. So there's going to be some lapse in knowledge in terms of what their past was and what has changed for them, but I am excited to learn more about them as we go forward. Since we're on the roster page, just out of curiosity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20. Okay. So, as of right now, there's 20 characters. And we didn't know this before the beta, but Gamescom was also the week after the beta. We did get a new trailer that showed off Sindel and General Shao, and then we got another look at Raiden. So we had those guys in there. That story trailer looks great. Cool to see the little bit changes in their characters. Sindel being Queen, I think, still is canon. General Shao, formerly Shao Kahn in the past universe. It's cool to see him in this early stages. We'll have to see how aggressive he gets. And maybe he'll still do the kind of hostile takeover or become leader. I think that's the big pull and draw from this game overall, is just like this fresh start, but seeing what's different and what kind of story they are going to tell with Liu Kang now being in charge. Sorry for that little tangent. Back to the beta. Everything played smoothly from what I played. Cameos are very helpful, but was an element that I was not using to its fullest potential. Obviously, it is the big selling point for this title in like terms of change in gameplay. It was one of those things that didn't register in my brain of like using, because normally with Mortal Kombat games, it's not a thing unless you're doing the special towers. So for me, I wasn't using it as much as, maybe not that I should have, but I was not using it nearly enough to have a grasp on it, or like building combos off of it or continuing them or whatever. So it's there. It's something we'll have to experience and build upon as the release approaches and the game's out. But everything ran smoothly. Playing online, my notes. Once again, I'm just talking from experience. Just want to be open and honest with you guys. Only played a handful of matches. Weird how people, especially in the beta, decline your opponent matchup. So you get linked up with a person and you get an accept decline. I don't know why. It's the beta. These records aren't going to carry over. You want to just play matches. People who decline, I have no idea why you decline. Just play the game. Who cares? You're here to play it. You're playing online. Just do it. All right? Nike swoosh. The matches I did play, however, once again ran smoothly. There was one that was a little jittery. I was not playing with a wired connection, so I get that as part of my fault. You know, it's a better have it wired. Fighting game fans know that and are very specific about that. But it was a wireless to wireless connection. So it was a little frame droppy there, but that was the only bad match. The rest ran fine. And then you're always going to find the people who just use the cheap stuff. Ranged combat is always one of those things that is stressful, right? I'm sure higher level players, like, you know what you're doing, so you can deal with it and adapt to it. That kind of middle stage to early players where someone just does fireball, for example, to just do those projectiles over and over and over and over again, is very frustrating to deal with. I ran into one individual who was using Sub-Zero. Totally cool. I was using Johnny Cage because that was the last person I used in the towers. I thought I had a good grasp of them. Basic grasp of them. He did the slide. He would back up, slide. Back up, slide. Maybe he would do something in close, but he always went back to that slide. Worst thing is when you recognize that someone's doing the move, you know it's coming. And I could predict it, or I would call it out every time, and it was like 50-50. I either block it or I'm getting hit by it still because I can't react fast enough, whatever. Knowing why I'm losing and then not being able to turn it around on its head and beat them for their, not stupidity, that sounds more mean than I intended to, their choice of tactics, let's just say that, sucks. Granted, I'm sure that's something that comes with practice or whatever, but that was something that got to me. I was like, I know exactly what you're going to do, and I can't I can't punish you for this. And that's a fighting game term, like punishing combos or punishing movements and mistakes. That was a little frustrating, but I get that. That is a very me thing. That has nothing to do with the game. That is just something practice-wise will get better. Controller-wise, like getting used to the game, that's something that I will get better with over time or recognize better. It was just frustrating to run into that so early of like, ugh, you're this guy. All right, well, here we go. Because that's a big detractor for me in online play, is it's either you run into the players that do that, just boop, 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 have no game plan and just do the same thing over and over again, or it's the people who are really, 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 really good and have extended combos and you can't do anything. It's like, where's the middle ground? Where's the person of my skill level or slightly above my skill level where it's a decent back and forth? If it's a back and forth, even in a loss where I go, I lost, it's fun. I understand what's going on, and like that's engaging. And that's for any multiplayer game. Like, you don't want somebody who's cheap and you don't want to just be swept. You want that middle ground where you feel like you're doing something, there's a little bit of challenge behind it, and then you go from there. If you're the ultra competitive where you're like, I gotta have a perfect winning streak, touch grass seems to be the more recent term. Like, calm down. It's not that big a deal. If you're going to Evo, fine. Yes, you want to win your matches. If you're just at home sitting on your couch, chill out. You don't need to rage quit. There were so many quitalities on X, on Twitter, that I was seeing people share. It's like, why? Why are you wasting your time? Whatever. But anyways, sorry, I've been kind of rambling on this. Mortal Kombat 1's beta was a lot of fun. I appreciate the opportunity that NetherRealm obviously gives us. Obviously, it helps them. But appreciate the little preview that they do allow us to do with the pre-order here. Looking forward to the game coming out. And yeah, just really the big thing is I'm stoked for the story. They've been crushing it these past couple story and campaigns that they've done, both in the Mortal Kombat universe and the Injustice games. Really enjoyed those. So I'm excited to see where this goes going forward with, once again, the rerun of the timeline, the rewriting, see where these different characters go, and then also see who else shows up from the past. Speaking of Sindel and Shao Kahn, or rather General Khan, we got, I think his name is Motaro, the like horseman, the centaur. He's a cameo in there too, so it's another fun one of just like a nod to the past. It's not a character I know very well, but I remember always hearing his name in the initial theme song, so good stuff there. But looking forward to the release, September 14th, so get your copy, let's play, let's have some fun.